All right, welcome back, everybody. I know it's day 1 million whatever of your quarantine, and you guys are really bored, but we're back in the museum. Now, the Manassas Volunteer Fire Company here at Station 501 has a museum that you can come by and visit. If you go to the webpage, you can check it out. Today in the museum, we're going to talk about the alerting system, about how volunteer firefighters used to be notified how to come to the fire station. And we used to call that coming from home. Like, you would come from home, so when you would hear the alert, you jump in your car as fast as you could, and you would run to the fire station. Now, back in the early 1800s, or late 1800s, early 1900s, one of the first alerting systems that we had were railroad tires. These tires had originally come off of Confederate and Union trains that you would have seen over off of Cloverdale or Clover Hill railroad tracks over off the farm. So what they did is they decided they were going to take 3 railroad tires, they took it off the locomotives, and they put them around town and they cut them. So anytime that there was a fire here in the town of Manassas or in the general vicinity, it wasn't your job to go get your bucket and start putting fire or water on the fire. It was your job to go to this railroad tire and start beating it until guys showed up. Now, the fire station didn't have a bay, or even a fire station didn't exist until 1915. So everybody had to come from home with their bucket. And when you got here, okay, you had to put out fire. Now, they did have a little garage that had a little wagon in it, a little hand pump wagon, and a ladder wagon that happened in Mr. Prescott's garage, which used to sit where the current City Hall is. So if you see they had a hammer, it was probably a little bit bigger hammer, probably a big sledgehammer, and they would beat this tire until everybody showed up at the fire. Now, the ladder wagon was a little bit different. When they would get alerted, they wouldn't come to the fire station in 1915. They would go get the ladder wagon and have to go to the train depot. They used to keep the ladders underneath the platform to put on the ladder wagon. So until 1909, or up until 1915, people would just come from their house to the fire. Then they would start going to the fire station in 1915. So this stayed up all the way up until they decided to put steam and hot water into Old Town. Once they did that, they got the steam whistles off the trains. And the steam whistle was located at the Church Street Public Works area where the generator plant was for the town. Then they started using these all the way up until the late 40s. So the steam whistle, the train tire, and then they went to the air raid sirens. Our proximity to Washington, D.C., they worried about Japan coming and bombing us like they did in Pearl Harbor. So after World War II, when the guys were home, they decided to use the air raid sirens to bring firemen to the fire station. So there was about 3 or 4 of these located all around town, over in Georgetown South, one over on the Mathis shopping center area, and then one right in Old Town on the Old Town Hall where the fire station was. After that, they had gotten a little bit bigger one. They used to sit on top of the water tower, and they would make those able to be alerted to the firemen here around town. Now, all these fire sirens and all these different sirens that you see, they were operated by the phone company. The phone company, which is located next to the building there at the Harris Pavilion. She would get a call in, and she would change it and move it back and forth, and then she would operate the sirens once she got the calls in. The guys that talk about it back in the day, that would talk about what would happen is if the fire siren started going off, the switchboard would go crazy because everybody was curious, wanted to know where the fire was. After that, the people in the city of Manassas complained a little bit about how loud the sirens were. They used to test them every day at noon. So the guy who owned the phone company just said, if I don't ring the fire bell or the fire siren inside of the town, can I get you guys this new plectron? The plectron used to sit next to everybody's bed, which was like a monitor or a big scanner. When they would set off a certain set of tones, the plectron would go off, wake you up, and send you to the fire station. The problem is that if you already had enough people there, or you didn't need to go because the call was canceled, you couldn't take this with you. So you didn't know. So everybody had to come to the fire station, and then everybody had to go back home. After the plectron, we got into the minutors. And these little pagers we would carry around on our belts. So it didn't matter where we were in town. We could be eating in the restaurant, eating or working around the yard. But the minuter was like a big plectron, a little plectron, where the tones would go off, and it would set the tones off, and it would send you to the fire station. Plus the dispatcher, you could hear him talking if you didn't need to go. So that went all the way up. This was the very first minuter. Everybody thought they were cool with these. It's the first one I had. So that's how they got to the fire station. This time around, we're going to talk about the gear that the firemen used to wear, starting from the late 1800s all the way up till now. See you then.